So you should know that Michael Paul Smith is from Redondo Beach, and he's trekked all the way up here to be with us this morning. Yay! We've known one another a long time, and it's taken 5 years to get you here. I mean, unbelievable. Thank you. Yeah, we have been busy. Thank you so much. So beautiful. So beautiful. I want to say good morning again to everybody, and good morning to everybody who's on the live stream this morning. Hi, Virginia and Peter. Hi, Judy. Hi, Lisa. Whoever else is on, you're certainly a welcome part of our community this morning. And as John said, the theme for this month is freedom. And it is particularly appealing to me because it's my chosen Word of God in my personal covenant that I created when Reverend Les and I went up to Oregon to do the co-creation process, learn how to do the co-creation process. He knows how to do it. He went with me so I could learn how to do it. The word freedom, it has so many different ramifications. It is just such a wildly interesting word for many people. It has, the connotations are unlimited. Ernest Holmes said in his chapter on man's relationship to the spiritual universe, humankind's relationship to the spiritual universe, if you want to be politically correct, he said, freedom of will means the ability to do, say, and think as one wishes, to express life as one personally desires. To be able merely to think and dream of freedom would not be liberty. I mean, we can all think about and dream about our freedom, but there is really very little liberty in that. Viktor Frankl and Nelson Mandela, who were prisoners at different times, absolutely personified and embodied this idea. And Ernest goes on to say in that chapter, he said, to imagine without the power to manifest such imagination would be to remain in a dream world which would never come to self-realization. So we wouldn't be given this power of imagination if it were not intended for us to create something different out of it. The God of our understanding would not in any way compromise us by not giving us the ways and means to demonstrate what we've imagined. This is so significant as far as I'm concerned. Our world is one of self-expression, even when this expression seems to limit us. It's really all about how we express ourselves in this world. And preparing for the Energy of Money class, which is it's full on Tuesday night, but Thursday morning still has spaces open. This is the last week you could possibly join. So please, if you think that you might like to be in this class, do sign up this morning, or do come and see me, and I'll give you the handouts from last week. I have found that so much of what we believe to be freedom hinges on our ability to come and go as we please. And the restriction in that ability to come and go as we please is very often predicated in money. So this was an opportune time for this class. It seems that in order for us to do what we want, when we want, how we want, and I always add with whom we want, we need to have the means to be able to do that. You know, have you ever envied someone who travels all over the world and you wonder, how do they do that? Where do they find not only the time to be able to do that, but the money to be able to do that? I always think of Dr. Jim Lockhart when I think about that. And at the beginning, I was a little bit envious of the way in which he so freely traveled all over the place. But when he shares where he goes and what he eats and what he drinks on Facebook, I kind of live vicariously through him. So the envy is a little bit less than what it might be. You know, many of us sit by and thinking idle thoughts of opulence and wealth, and yet we never seem to be able to demonstrate it in our lives because we have such a history of keeping our good at bay. You know, okay, talk to the hand. Talk to the hand. I am not receptive to the good that God has in store for me because I have a belief system that says my particular circle is limited in some way. I have this beautiful leather-bound book with quotes by Albert Hubbard that was given to me by a good friend when I very, very first started in ministry. She said, here, maybe you could use something of what's in here. And one of the quotes that I highlighted from this book is this one: responsibility is the price of freedom. Responsibility. The potential we are as people of freedom is huge. It is huge. And the responsibility that goes with it is to use the creative process in a conscious and intelligent way. Now, we're using the creative process every day in every way, but we're not conscious sometimes. And sometimes we're not using it very intelligently. Have you ever said to yourself, what was I thinking? When we do that, we are not using it in a conscious and intelligent way. This would mean that we are just as perfect as the inherent God within is perfect, and yet we don't even get close to tapping into that idea. We don't even get close sometimes. It is the Father's good pleasure to give us the kingdom. It says that. We've been told that our whole lives. It is the Father's good pleasure to give us the kingdom. Here's the rub, though. If it is the Father's good pleasure to give us the kingdom, we must learn how to receive it and use it. That's the sort of caveat to that Bible quote. This is the ultimate freedom, for us to be able to learn how to receive and use the good that comes to us. Learning how to be free and learning how to receive the tools that we've been given is freedom. Ernest Holmes has never told us what to think. He has always told us how to think. That's the whole premise of the science of mind. How to think better thoughts. How to think more positive things. How to think in a way that is life-affirming. That's what Ernest Holmes intended for us. When we see, this is so important to me. I get a little tongue-tied sometimes, but I just love this series for this month because it has so much to do with everything that we teach at this center. When we begin to change our negative monkey mind thoughts to life-affirming and positive thoughts in one area of our lives, one area, everything else in our lives changes accordingly. It does. It can't help but change because we use the same premise for changing it in one area as we do in all areas of our lives. We can never, ever again use the excuse, I didn't know. I didn't know. Once we know something and see the demonstration of that knowing in our lives, we can't unknow it. You can't unspill the milk, as the saying goes. This is the epitome of the evolution of the spontaneous individual, as Ernest Holmes calls it. This is the epitome of spontaneous thinking. Once we know something, we know it for the whole rest of our lives. The only way Spirit can evolve a spontaneous individual is to let that individual alone and allow him or her to awaken to themselves. That's what this teaching is all about, awakening to ourselves. I don't want to awaken to Chris. Well, yeah, maybe not. I picked the wrong person. I mean, not the wrong person, but, you can laugh. I'll be embarrassed for the whole rest of this conversation. Okay, there you go. I don't want to awaken to Jill. I want to awaken to Maureen. I want to awaken to who and what I am. If you have what I think is a grand way of living, yes, I might want to emulate that grand way of living. But I can never be you because I'm going to be that individualized expression of God uniquely as myself. So from this perspective, we have been created with the possibility of unlimited freedom and let alone to discover it for ourselves, if and only if I'm awake. If I'm awake, we begin with small, sweet little baby steps, as my teacher Marie Nema says. We begin sometimes by demonstrating parking spaces. And when we become aware of our power in that arena, we begin to have parking karma every time we go somewhere. You know, my kid's dad always used to say, well, why don't you drive? You have really good parking ability. And when we would go somewhere, is that the only reason you want to go with me? No, but it worked. We simply and convincingly declare the perfect parking space, and it's there. That's like kindergarten science of mind, right? Kindergarten science of mind. On the road to self-discovery, though, there are some potholes and some setbacks. And these setbacks show themselves as conflict within ourselves as to the efficacy of this power that we're beginning to learn about. We test the waters, the test works. We test the waters, and it doesn't work. What's up with that? It's all consciousness, and I begin to doubt my consciousness. Then the minute the doubt sets in one area of my life, it affects every area of my life. See, this premise works for and against us, totally and completely. So once we become aware of that, why wouldn't we have this premise working for us all the time, every day, every moment? This is often where the suffering comes in. So what do I need to do to change the habit or practice of reverting to form? Because we do that periodically, don't we? I was raised Catholic, as you know, and every once in a while I go like this. You know, why do I do that? Because it's force of habit. I think about something and I bless it in a way. And, you know, we've had years and years of suffering for some of us. And now we realize that this is no longer the story that we want to present to the world. I want to have a different story. When I realize that I'm the author of my own experience, I am totally the writer. I can change the script any time I want. We get introduced to the science of mind and a new and improved model of God, and voila! Little by little, positive change begins to occur. The domino effect works in a very positive way in our lives. A little good here, a little good there. More good there, more good here. We see it happening. We see the demonstration of it. Okay, it's working, but why is it working and how is it working? Ego gets in the way when we want to know how God is working in our lives, because this is when we must elect to accept and have faith that it, whatever it is happening. Ego has a very hard time accepting. It wants to analyze, it wants to criticize, it wants to judge. And this is the place where we really begin to build our spiritual muscle, is when we notice when ego is in the way and we separate ourselves from ego and become the observers of what is going on in our lives. Because the observer would never criticize. The observer would never judge. The observer would never, ever analyze. It just simply says yes. Says yes. We must know definitely and consistently that the universe is for us and not against us. Ego pipes up and says, wait a minute. The universe is not really for us. Look at all the lack in the world. Look at all the poverty. Look at the suffering, the evil deeds, the physical pain and anguish that people are going through. Look at it. Pay attention to it. Let it get in the way of the good that you desire in your life. And while we might not hear it so much on Sunday mornings, we do soon learn through our studies that these issues are not person, place, or thing, as Ernest Holmes says, but an experience which we are allowed to have because of our divine individuality. I can only notice those things because of my divine individuality. Until we learn to use the law affirmatively through negative experiences, we cannot learn to use the law affirmatively in cooperation with it. This is such a definitive point in the science of mind, early on in the science of mind. It's page 109 of the Science of Mind textbook. We have to have the polar opposites as human beings in order for us to know who we are as spiritual beings. That's the tough part. That's the tough part. The universe is foolproof, Ernest says. It does say that we can have what we can take, while at the same time we must expect to experience the logical result of our thought and act, be it good or what we call bad. Look, the meaning of freedom implies within it the possibility of suffering, because if we are free only by virtue of the possibility of choosing more than one course of action or one experience. We have choices. And that's how suffering shows up in our lives sometimes. Sometimes we choose incorrectly. One of my teachers, Dr. Arthur Chang, who's at Founders at 6th and Berendo, wrote a whole paper on this idea. And early on in my ministry, some of you know that every Tuesday morning I trek down from Granada Hills to Founders to take class with Dr. Arthur Chang. He's the definitive teacher as far as I'm concerned. He is just amazing, amazing. He said, there is no freedom or happiness, or should I say there is no awareness of freedom or happiness until there is a temporary restriction of bondage and unhappiness. You can't have both at the same time. You can't. How would we even know unless we've had the experience of both? That's the human experience, as the pairs of opposites. Do we get that? We are here to experience those pairs of opposites so that we can know that which idea we want to embrace is the one that is positive and life affirming. Negative, positive, right, wrong, good, bad. We have to have those in order for us, as Dr. Chang says, in order for us to have this temporary restriction of bondage and unhappiness. I always say that we cannot know the pinnacles of joy unless we've known the depths of despair. I mean, seriously, we don't stay in the depths of despair, and we can't stay in the pinnacles of joy all the time, but there is some sort of happy medium between those two. The human experience is not freedom or bondage. It is freedom and bondage. It is not either or, it's both and. And when we begin to learn that, we will see that we're at choice as to how we experience life. Our job is to keep the home fires burning in the freedom aspect of our lives. And this requires tremendous faith and courage. Ernest, who said this? Alan Watts. Alan Watts said this. Love me some Alan Watts. To have faith is to trust yourself to the water, he says. When you swim, you don't grab hold of the water, because if you do, you will sink and drown. Instead, you relax and float. Relax. Relax. Life is intended to be easy. Life is intended to be simple. Life is intended to flow. It is not intended for us to fall down, fall down, fall down, fall down. The Chinese proverb, again, fall down 7 times, get up 8. You know, some of us have a really lot of experience getting up. The people who have enrolled in the Energy of Money class have faith that their participation in that class will yield freedom from financial insecurity. And that faith is not misplaced. Because if we do the work, change the thinking, reorient the words we've been using up until now, and have a greater awareness of our own consciousness, something wonderful really begins to happen. It does. And you know, all those people who are in that class, they're going to know that for the entire congregation. Even if you can't be in the class for whatever reason, on a daily basis for the next 8 weeks, we are going to know the truth for the entire congregation. Jesus understood the laws of cause and effect. He knew that if we talk about discordant experiences, as Ernest Holmes calls them, we will get more of those discordant experiences. If I talk about unhappiness, we get more of the same. The converse, of course, is true. If we speak to the gratitude that we have for what we already have, we begin to see how blessed we are. And we are open and receptive to more good showing up in our lives. This is something that we have to work on because, unfortunately, the tendency of thought is to see the downside of life. Just watch the news for a couple of days in a row and see how that's working for you. You know, do we actually buy into the state of the economy? Do we actually buy into the lowered stock market? You know, am I fretting because my stocks have gone down last week? No, I'm not fretting about that, because what goes down also goes up. Listen, I get to look at where I am from yesterday to where I am to today, and I'll use a good example. 15 years ago, I had to roll over a little teeny tiny pension that I had, and I put it into a small cap fund, very volatile, right? I could stand to lose $2,947. Put it in that fund. I did. Guess how much that fund is worth today without putting another dime in it? $28,400. Am I worried about the stock market? Nah. You know, we've been shown God is a loving, kind, and generous God, as opposed to the judgmental, critical God that needed anger management classes. You know, we grew up with that kind of God. That's really not what is our experience today. It takes time to reorient our thinking and to accept that God always says yes to our desires. But that is the truth with a capital T. I swear it, because I have been privileged to see it work in my life. I could tell you story after story, but we'd be here until 12 o'clock, and I'm not going to pull a Moira on you. Yes, they know what I'm talking about. You know, I love the author Toni Morrison. She's a favorite of Oprah Winfrey, and so I've read just about everything that she's ever written. And she said in an interview one time, she said, when you get these jobs that you've been so brilliantly trained for, just remember that your real job is that you are free. You need to free somebody else. If you have some power, then your job is to empower somebody else. This is not just a grab bag candy game, she calls it. So our job as religious scientists is not to keep this information for ourselves, but to share it with everybody that we know. Marina can use it in her therapy practice. Audrey can use it with the people that she works with who are suffering from drug and alcohol abuse. People who are in real estate. Stephen, you can use it in your real estate business. We can all use it in our business in some form or another without getting on our soapbox and proselytizing people. By my example, the world knows who I am. Why do I do classes on the energy of money? It's because I want to empower others to have the same experience of life that I've had. Yes, it is a way for the center to prosper, but it's mostly because if everybody here prospers, it's a given that the center is going to prosper. I cannot truly embrace my birthright unless I help someone else see their own right to freedom. We cannot keep the signs of mind to ourselves. It must be paid forward. That's the ultimate freedom. If we want to live in a community where everybody thinks the way we do and everybody has the same advantages that we have, then we must empower other people. When the whole world sees that it is right and good for everyone, a world that works for everyone, as our spiritual leader, Dr. Ken Gordon, says all the time, then and not until then will the problems of lack and limitation disappear. Yes, freedom is our birthright. However, I cannot be fully free until everyone else is free too, knowing that with God, all things are possible. Will you join me in consciousness, please? And so today, as we go within from that place of absolute gratitude and joy and celebration for the fact that we have the opportunity today to sit here in a center and be around like-minded people and to share in this mystery called life. It's not mysterious, but it is a mystery. There is a reason and a rhyme for everything that we do, everything that we are, and how we present ourselves to the rest of the world. Today, I know at the very core of my being that my God-centered awareness is that image that I project to the rest of the world. My consciousness does come before me in all things. And so today I know that whatever needs to be revealed to me, whatever my healing is that needs to take place, it's totally and completely an inside job. Is when I understand from my perspective who and what I am as a spiritual being, I can move out into my world, and that consciousness comes before me in all things. People want what we have and are willing to go to any lengths to get it. That it is not a philosophy of promotion. It is a philosophy of attraction. And so that law of attraction is very exact. I attract to me those people most like myself. And if I wonder today why I have certain people in my life, I get to look to that self-evaluation to see where in my life I am repelling rather than attracting. And so I know that that is the freedom at its highest and best today. Freedom that is God ordained. And so I simply accept this for each and every person here today, as I accept it for myself. As I joyfully receive and give thanks, I bless this day. I bless everyone here. I know that I am blessed, and so I can move out into my world in a grander and more beautiful way, as we say together, and so it is.